Welcome back to the Women in Movement podcast. Today, I'm here with Carolyn Chu. She is a movement facilitator, instructor, practitioner, performer, entertainer in New York City. And she has her own studio called Tiger Mom Aerial Hoop Studio in Gowanus, Brooklyn. It's a place that welcomes creativity and hard work and fun. Carolyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. First of all, Teresa, thank you for having me on your show. It's so awesome that you are putting a show that tells stories about people and their lives, and sometimes it's really you never really get a chance to tell your story. And here you are, you've created this portal for me to tell my story. So thank you so much for having me on my show. My name is Carolyn Chu. I've been doing movement ever since I was a little kid. I didn't really know what movement was. I just know as a little kid I was getting bullied, and this is where it starts. Where when you're growing up, you get bullied because you're the smallest person in the classroom, in the group, in the family. You're just the smallest one. So you're kind of getting picked on, pushed around, and then you start to realize, is this how my life is gonna be? I need a little bit more muscle. Maybe if I had a little bit more muscles on my arm, maybe I could stand up to these bullies. So I started to research, how do you get muscles, right? You're only like 11, 12 years old when all this is, you're figuring out life, and then you discover something called gymnastics. And I begged my parents to put me in gymnastics because I saw their exercise regimen was pretty tough. Lots of running, lots of stretching, lots of push-ups and pull-ups. And it's I admire the gymnastics lifestyle, and I admire their bodies because they put their bodies through a lot just to do a backflip, just to do splits in the air. So that's where my movement life started to birth. It kind of birthed from, I guess a negative experience of getting beaten up. So maybe like 3 years of gymnastics. I trained from sixth to ninth grade. No, sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade is when I trained gymnastics as much as I could. And I told myself, you've got to do this as you're going through puberty because that's just how you develop these muscles. Like right now, if I don't get up and train these push-ups, sit-ups, whatever, I'm gonna get bullied for the rest of my life. And I told myself, I threatened myself, if I don't do this, then I'm gonna get beaten up. So I threatened myself, made myself do all these exercises in gymnastics, and I didn't give up. There was moments in gymnastics you're like, why are you doing this? This is so painful. I got shin splints. Luckily I didn't break any bones, but shin splints is probably the most painful, I guess, chronic injury. Yeah. You just feel like every step you take, needles and pins are going through your shins.
Mm-hmm.
So then movement continued through high school. I experienced cheerleading 1 year. I was just curious to try it, and I was surprised I made the team. I wasn't really too thrilled or excited about it because it just was just a different vibe. And then I also joined the choreo team. And the choreo team, it was fun. It was like a lot of like combinations of dance, of jazz, hip hop, modern, lyrical. It was very, very fun. Somehow I entered breakdancing, right? A very masculine energy style of dancing that does not require heavy loads of equipment. Everything else, gymnastics, requires equipment, but when you get to breakdancing, what do you need? Just cardboard, some floor. This is good enough. So I got into breakdancing in high school, and that is when my first injury happened. I was at this really fun event, and I didn't warm up, and then I go right into it, and I heard something snap. I turn around, I look behind me. It sounded like a pencil snapped in half, but no one was behind me, and I noticed sudden pain in my leg. I couldn't walk. I ruptured my left Achilles tendon at age 16, maybe almost 16 and a half, 17. So ruptured Achilles tendon, very painful. I went in denial. I didn't think I ruptured it. I was like, I just sprained it. So you go through the denial phase. You're like, no, I'm okay, but you haven't been able to walk on your foot for 4 days. You should go to the doctor. No, I don't want to go to the doctor. Your foot is swollen. You see the blood in your foot. You should go to the doctor. Okay, let's go. Doctor does x-rays or MRIs and says you have a ruptured Achilles tendon and I highly recommend surgery. Of course, I screamed, I cried, emotional me at 16. Never surgery, no! Denied it, didn't want surgery. Then I looked at what happens when you don't get surgery for my condition. You'll have a limp for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So luckily, I decided that to go into surgery with it. I remember it was really hard coming out of surgery because you're, besides being all drugged up, your foot's in a cast. The pain is I can divide the pain into 3 different pains. There's the physical pain. Yes, you got split open. They sew your skin back together and they put these sutures in your Achilles. There's that physical pain. And then there's the emotional pain. You know how we use movement to express ourselves. It was very hard to walk, move around. But I always told myself that, okay, if you can't walk, you can't stand, you can't use your legs that much, you still have your upper body. Because of that injury, my upper body strength on crutches started to get insanely strong. I noticed that because I wasn't using my lower half, my arms being on crutches just started to get more lat muscles. My shirt got tighter. I was crawling on my arms a lot. I tried a lot of handstands. I crawl on my elbows. I did things on my shoulders. So I try not to let that one injury stop me from moving. Because it's easy to say that, oh, I'm injured. Okay, now I can just sit there and let life pass by in front of me and get everyone to feel sorry for me, get everyone to open the door for me, get everyone to hand me food, and just feel sorry for me. I didn't really like that because I have my brain works fine, my spine works great, my hands, my shoulders are fine. So don't let this ruptured Achilles stop you from continuing what you love to do, which is dance and move. So time passes and I go into college. Life is good. I discovered pole dancing. No, more like I wanted to try a pole dance class and it was great. And maybe about 1 or 2 years into trying pole dancing, I tried it at Crunch Gym in Midtown. And I just remember it was October, November, very cold. They had the AC blasting. It was a lot of people in there. We were running towards a trampoline. After you pounce on the trampoline, you jump on the pole. I thought that sounded like the funnest accident. Oh, I couldn't wait. So here we are. I'm going to sprint towards the pole. I did it once and I was fine. The second time around, the same thing happened. As I was running through the middle of the room, I hear a snap. I turn around, there's no one behind me. And I looked down and I said, oh, snaps. Did I just rupture my other Achilles? And yes, I ended up rupturing my right Achilles. So my right Achilles and my left have 2 ruptured Achilles. I handled it a lot more mature, stayed calm, took a cab home, admitted that I ruptured it, and told my parents I need help with surgery. They went back to the same surgery doctor, and he's like, no, this is pretty common. Once you injure one side, it's pretty common that you have the same injury on the other side. So to whoever who's listening out there, if you have a catastrophic injury on one side, be careful of your other side. Warm yourself up. You don't have to push yourself. The older you get, you've got to do more warm-ups. You don't have to push yourself hard like you did when you're in your teens or 20s. You have to really understand that your body, as we age, the recovery process is shorter. We don't recover as fast when we're young. So another ruptured right Achilles. I go through the same thing. My right leg ruptured, so my left leg got strong because everything was happening on my left leg. My arms got stronger. Did the crutches, and Now, when it comes to explosive movements, I don't explode that aggressively on stage or during practice. I always do little warm-ups, little explosions in the body, like calisthenic movements. I think is really, really good for warming up the body. But never, ever do I just sudden sprint. Never, ever do I just suddenly like run to the other side of the room, or sudden sprinting is what I believe can cause my injury. So, but after all that, I would say that I learned that you have two options to let your injuries define you, or you define the injury. So I wanted to use my injury as fuel to continue my passions, because every time you're giving like a negative experience, do you just sit there and let it pass you by and feel sorry for yourself? Yeah, maybe for a second or two, but the longer you do that, the more time I feel like you're wasting with yourself. The moment you're born, we're already dying. We already know we're gonna expire. Our bodies are gonna leave this earth. So why not enjoy every moment you have? Why not discover every move that you can do with your body, but do it smart. Do it with intentions. Do it with um a gradual steps getting there. So with all that said, and now I have my own studio, I look at students, and when they tell me their injuries, or they tell me what happened to their bodies, um, two ways I started to notice students get injured is the chronic injury, sudden or constant repetition of the same movement, and their hands or forearms, something in the elbow doesn't feel right. So that's why I'm also a big, big believer of trying or cross training other movements that are the complete opposites movements of what you love. So, as you know, I love pole dancing, I love aerial hoop, I love attaching myself to a piece of metal. So, to counter that, I train kickboxing, I'll train jiu-jitsu, I'll train some sort of martial arts where it feels the movements are like opposites. It's a complete different type of movements. And I find that train, when you cross train something that you're not good at, it's okay if you don't feel great at it, but it's different movements. So I find like training a variety of movements is really, really important as humans for yourself to grow. So don't get stuck in the same movement. That's why I always tell myself, and um, sometimes if you try something and pole dancing or air hoop and you feel like it's not for you, it's okay. Keep trying another studio, or try a different teacher, or try a different style, or try another genre of movements. But I'm a big believer of you should never stop moving your body. Once you have your body in motion, stay in that motion. But anyhow, that was my long ass introduction. Right?
I love it. I love it. There's so much that I learned from you there in all those pieces. I think it also spoke to, that consistency of don't stop moving throughout that intro. How do you use movement to get over emotional or physical stresses? And I think it would also be interesting. I really find that there's a lot of carryover in movements, and I'm curious about where have you seen carryover between your pole dancing and kickboxing, or your aerial work and kickboxing?
Where does it cross over? Is that the question? Like where?
Like, how does one help with the other? Where have you seen movements? Like, in my mind, there's a lot of spirals in both. There's a lot of full body motion.
Yes.
There's a lot of leg engagement, pointing the toes with full extension of the whole leg. But there, I'm sure you've noticed a lot of crossover between the two movements.
So I would say, well, I've been kickboxing less than a year, and I only do the heavy back work. But from what I've observed is the high intensity interval training kickboxing classes, they don't let you take breaks. So you're in constant motion, and your muscles burn, and that's the whole point, is to repeat like the same movement. Maybe they're like mountain climbers or cycling or like sit-ups. You do so many of them, hundreds and hundreds of them, that your muscles burn so bad that that's how you start to build like that extra bit of strength in your body, which I find is really helpful for pole. So when it comes to kickboxing, there's these patterns that I've noticed that happen in your arms and your legs and your head movement. So with those patterns, I find it really, really interesting, because then you can take those patterns and apply it to pole. So like one example is how you move your like they call it a jab, and it's most people like jab with their left hand. So when you're like punching this bag, you're reaching your arm forward and then you're drawing it back. And I feel like with pole dancing or even aerial hoop, you're reaching and then you're grabbing, and then you're either pulling your body towards it or slightly shifting your weight depending on how you're pulling. So
that's so cool.
well, yeah, and what I find really interesting is when I started kickboxing, my elbow pain started to go away, and I believe it's because I was doing so much pulling, meaning I the pulling your body towards the piece of metal, the hoop or the pole. It started to create a little tendonitis, a little flare in my elbow, because I was doing so much of that movement that I couldn't figure out why am I having that pain, even though the rest of my body felt great. So kickboxing, it's so much push-ups in there, and you're punching. So you have in the fitness world pushing and pulling. And when you have this equal balance in your body that you practice and you train both, then you shouldn't be having elbow pains. You shouldn't be having shoulder pains. That's just my belief. I see the crossover in there.
Yeah, I think it's also cool too, because kickboxing allows for, I feel like, some elasticity training, a little bit more so than in pole, because pole can be very slow at times. There are times where it can be super fast, but you're in kickboxing, you're really working on that reflexive, the elasticity in the joints, the like how fast can you pull your arm back in, as well as pushing it out, like how rubber bandy can your joints be, which is it's a different thing to train, and and that balance is always needed. And another thing that you train is jiu-jitsu. So are there any crossovers you see in jiu-jitsu?
Big time. Yeah. So glad you mentioned jiu-jitsu. I've been doing jiu-jitsu a lot longer. The learning curve for jiu-jitsu is much greater than any other sort of martial arts dance I've ever seen. That's why I think blue belt is the hardest belt to get. The ranking goes white belt, blue belt, purple, brown, and black. And the reason I think blue belt is the hardest to get, because you have to earn 4 stripes as a white belt to get your blue belt. And as you're earning those stripes, you really ask yourself, why am I doing this? This person's sitting on my head. This person is twisting my arm in half. This person is squeezing me so hard, my face just wants to pop out. Oh my God, why am I doing this so painful? So as all that pain is happening, you're questioning. And it goes back to, because I need to learn how to defend myself on the floor, because I need to feel empowered, so I know how to get away when someone throws me to the floor. Like, there's so many reasons and positive outcomes when you learn an activity like a sport, a competitive sport like jiu-jitsu. I would say some of the crossovers is in jiu-jitsu, you are attaching yourself to another human. But it's not just like, hey, friend, let me attach myself to you. You're attaching yourself to someone who is resisting you. They're trying to fight you back. They're trying to push you off. They're trying to attack you. They're trying to choke you, rip your arm off, your foot, your ankle off. So while that's happening, you're in this battle. You have this pressure on you as it's happening. I find like when I'm learning jujitsu, there's so many grips, there's so many angles to attach yourself to another human, depending on how you want to do it and what your intended goals are. So that being said, you can translate that and attach yourself to a metal pole. And the metal pole is pretty predictable. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just there, right? The only thing that is predictable is gravity. Gravity is just pulling you down to the floor. So I find like when I'm training pole, it's how I position my head, my hand grips, my torso, my spine. Everything I'm learning in jiu-jitsu, they're always talking about spinal disalignment. You're twisting, you're putting your training partner in a bad position. You learn all the angles that make for the human anatomy, you learn the angles that are weak and strong. So when you're training jujitsu, ideally you want to put yourself in the more athletic position. And same thing with pole dancing. When you're doing pole or aerial hoop, you want to put yourself in these athletic positions. Athletic position meaning that you can push off your toes, you can reach your arms forward, you can sprawl your hips to the floor. Like you're in these positions where you're in a strong, like aggressive position where you can move your body in such a way that it's athletic
and generate like force.
Yes, yeah, generate force there. So it's great to train, but I find that it's not for everyone, and it's a very male dominated activity. A lot of martial arts is, but I find that it helps me have this kind of confidence where when you come out of jujitsu training, even though you got choked out, someone did an arm bar on you, you still feel empowered because you survived it. You didn't die. Your head didn't get ripped off. You're alive. You're not sent to the hospital. You're alive. You have this sense of like, I survived. I lived it. And when you survive a jiu-jitsu class, to me, it's a little bit different than surviving a pole dancing class or an aerial hoop. When you're in pole class and aerial hoop class and you're looking around, you're a little nervous and you don't really want to try the trick. It's not like anyone's going to come over and be like, oh, you didn't do the class. Well, maybe you didn't want to do the movement for whatever reasons. But when you train jujitsu, it's like you got to be there drilling. You got to be there doing the rolls. You have to do the movements. You can't just sit and visualize and watch it. So I find like when you train a martial arts, it heightens and it helps you understand the human anatomy a lot more. So I highly recommend it. Give it a try.
Yeah, there were so many gems in that explanation, like highlighting the fact that it really does help you with anatomy, understanding another person's anatomy with your own. Also, the idea of having that kinesthetic imagination of recognizing what your body has to do, but in the moment, and having to react in the moment as opposed to staring at a pole and then trying a thing and then coming down and staring and trying it again. You know, in jiu-jitsu, it would be active, and otherwise you could put yourself into a pretty dangerous position. Which is cool. There was one time I was roughhousing, and it was, maybe after like 3 months of trying pole, and I was on the ground, and I remember taking someone's arm and spinning around on my back, and I was like, oh, that was like a pole move that I do on the floor, but I just got out of a trap. And so it was just cool to see. I love seeing how movements help with other things, and where does it carry over, and where does that just like come out in the body without the body having to think about it. Because like we have so much knowledge in our body, and our brain's just there to just piece all of it together and like sense it. But I feel like our body is so intelligent. We need to kind of honor that a little bit more. Something that I think you always do. I also think it's beautiful that you put yourself into these situations, even knowing that your past of being uncomfortable with bullies and stuff. So just putting yourself into situations where they might be male dominated areas, or, individuals who are a little bigger, and just like allowing yourself to be there, to learn, to try. I think that's a constant message that you're kind of putting out there, is trying and doing what you can and achieving what you can.
Absolutely.
And I know if you want to, I would like for you to talk a little bit about some of your relationship with injury, personal injury or injury with students. I know one of the things I enjoyed with a class that you taught was you took us to the wall and we were doing nerve flossing, and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. I love nerve flossing. And I was like, she knows her stuff. Like, so if you want to talk a little bit about that, or any success, or, things you've learned.
So what I learned is if you follow yourself into you call yourself an athlete, like one who performs their sport, then you probably carry a certain mindset. And as an athlete, it's not about how well you perform, it's about how fast can you recover from what you just did, right? Okay, you ran 5 miles, all right, you trained 6 hours on this pole, all right, you performed blank, blank, blank. Well, that sounds like it took a lot of your energy, and so how does the recovery phase go? And I find if you don't recover and you go back at it again, or you don't recover, you go back at it again, you have a chance of injuring yourself. So as I get older and older, I'm in my mid-40s, I always consider what is the recovery once I do that strenuous move I just did, or strenuous workout. And I think about recovery, it could be anything from restorative stretching, active stretching, maybe an ice bath, maybe massaging, maybe acupuncture, maybe foam rolling, all the ways of recovering. Pants therapy is another one that I get into with my legs. So I think about how can one recover, and having students in aerial hoop or pole dancing, I always encourage them to, like, you need to set aside time to dedicate to recover. So sometimes when you're training pole, this is why I think pole partner is good. You train pole, you go up there, you throw your tricks around, you come down, and then your partner goes. As your partner is training, you have a short recovery time to, like, catch your breath, maybe stretch a little bit, loosen up your arms a little bit more, and then back to your turn. So it's understanding your body, how much you can push yourself, and how much recovery effort do you need to put yourself through. Everyone's different. So I can't really say my formula was going to work, but what I have noticed is really important to spend time recovering. Otherwise, don't expect yourself just to be like the athletic part. And I guess as an athlete, you don't really bring it up or talk about it as much because it's not the interesting thing, it's not the cool tricks or the cool splits. But I think it's a very, very huge, important area in one's athletic, or just in life in general. If you put strain on your body, you put yourself in stressful poses on the pole or on the hoop or anywhere, even jiu-jitsu, you should spend time somehow doing a recovery activity to complement that. And everyone's different. Maybe it's going to the spa. And I kind of like other students to share and open up whatever their recovery is. It could be simple, even simpler, like you just don't train and maybe you just do long walks on the beach, and then meditation or breath work. That could be another one's recovery. Maybe your mindset needs to recover. Maybe the muscles need to recover. Maybe you got to figure out what exactly needs to recover, and go for it and make that part of your training regimen. Otherwise, you're prone to injuries, you're prone to chronic pain, the list goes on. And if you're not sure, you can always ask like those not a personal trainer, but the physical therapist, they always have a ton of little exercises or stretches that could help. But I believe that's why PT, uh, those PT trainers, there's money behind that. There's money behind recovery sessions. That's why there's massage businesses. What
Acupuncture.
you float invisible weightless. What is it, like an AirPod? There's a business down the street that does it, and you're in a saltwater tank.
Oh wow, okay.
Or sodium chloride tank, and so you feel very weightless, and that's another recovery.
Yeah, it's like we don't often. We also don't always take the time to just take care of our body and like hone into those.
Yeah.
You know, just
it could even be food too. Maybe you need, if you're running a 5K, maybe you need to up your potassium, or you need to up a certain kind of minerals in your body. Like you should be aware of what you're pushing yourself through. So
yeah. And it's also interesting with injury too. Unfortunately, I feel like it's not always at the top of discussion, because there's sometimes where, whether it's a facilitator or a student or a performer, there is some shame that comes with it, or some embarrassment, or, you know, like, oh, I should have known this, or you think back and you're like, I could have done things differently. And, but it's an everyday thing, and injuries happen, life happens. So it's important. It's also the most important way that we learn is from our injuries, or, you know, they are huge lessons and can be very beneficial if we take the time with them. Yeah.
Acknowledge it, embrace it, love it, but enjoy the journey. It's important to enjoy it.
It's just like another constraint. Like, oh, now I can't move my right leg. How many things can I do with my left leg and my left arm and my right arm?
Yeah.
How can I move my, like you said, you had the Achilles injury, and you're like, now I'm learning to walk on my arms. Like, so it's like your hand balancing is amazing.
Oh,
and shoulder and
thanks.
Like elbow balancing, it's top of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that is also, it's just, if we take any of those instances as like just an opportunity again to try something new, try something different, and then learn from it, there's a lot of growth that can happen. Because if we just get stuck in our own patterns, well, we could just get injured again.
Yeah.
Another really cool thing. So Carolyn does a lot of workshops. Do you have any coming up at all?
Not at the moment. We just got done with the doubles pole workshop, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to plan some more.
Okay. So the doubles pole workshop is something I wanted to talk about, because I think there is a lot of cool knowledge in that workshop. Carolyn has done performances and just shows, and just has dedicated a lot of work into practicing with partnering exercises on a pole. Or are there other places that you do it on the aerial hoop? I haven't seen that.
I love partner stuff. I personally, there's something about partner work I really, really enjoy. And I believe, me personally, it's an energy exchange. So let's just say I'll give the rough example. In jiu-jitsu, sometimes when you're doing a roll, you slap hands and you bump fists, and then they get their grips. You're trying to get grips on each other, and you can feel a person's intention the moment they grab your wrist, they grab your collar, they grab your pants, whatever they're grabbing, and you can feel like the moment they grab you, what they're trying to do. It's sending a message of, I'm trying to pull you to the floor. I'm trying to turn you around. I'm trying to control your head movement. Whatever it is, there's that immediate energy exchange. And it's pretty aggressive in jiu-jitsu world. So in the pole dancing world, the goals are different. It's not really to control the partner, but it's to find some sort of harmony together. And I've noticed when I'm teaching it, sometimes when my partner or whoever I partner with and we try a move, and it doesn't look exactly what we thought it would look like, or it doesn't look exactly what the sample looks like. And yet I remind myself that we're just different. Everyone's just different. It is hard to look exactly like the people on social media or the people on you see on your Instagram feed, whatever. So I tell myself that when I'm teaching this pole doubles workshop, it's most of all, people have to be comfortable like being in somebody's personal space.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like normal society, personal space, I would say is like 1 to 3 feet in front of you and
Mm-hmm.
around you. The moment somebody becomes in your personal space, you either feel like invasive, like get away from me, or maybe you're doing your doubles routine and you're like, wait, you need to get closer and more in my personal space because that's how we're gonna hit our pose. That's how we're gonna do our move. So that once you get that close energy exchange and you're in each other's personal space, um, I find like there's this bond and connection that starts to happen when I look at students. They get giddy, they smile, they're in the moment of it, they're very focused, they it forces you to be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I like really interested in doing more pulse double work because when you're learning to be in the moment, it's probably one of like the greatest sensations you can have. But to be in that moment, you have to be so focused, in tune with your partner, that the world around you doesn't matter, time doesn't matter, but you're just really, really into that moment of what you're trying to accomplish with your pole dancing partner or your aerial hoop partner up here. And that that feeling is such a rewarding feeling afterwards. I see it in students' eyes and I see it on myself too when I do like an amazing doubles move with a partner. It's so rewarding. And you can get it in acro yoga because that's partner work. You can get it in any kind of like partner work that requires like a certain level of like trust because you're somehow building on each other's trust and your communication. A lot of it is communicating. Sometimes the more time you spend with the partner, maybe you can do less verbal cues. But if it's your first day with this new partner, you're not a mind reader. You don't know what's going on in their mind. So it's always okay to ask him, be like, hey, can you do it like this? Can you try it like this? Or maybe if you slide your hand here, or move your foot there, or slide. It's totally fine to communicate, but both people gotta want it. I realize like if one person wants it more, it doesn't really work that well. Both people gotta really want to put their 100% effort into it. So I'm a big fan of doubles movement because it's you make friends, great bonding activity, fun stuff, new positions that you probably can't do on your own.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a big fan of it.
Yeah. I mean, the doubles performance I saw you do at Incredible was amazing. So if anyone's listening and you have access to that footage, you want to go to Carolyn's Instagram or maybe Incredible has it on theirs, but it was just so beautiful, the shapes that they made, the hard work that I also knew that went into it because I saw you going there consistently to practice. But I do love the fact that you're talking about honing into someone else's energy and really receiving that energy. One, from there is the verbal piece of it, and then eventually, hopefully, getting into that nonverbal communication of like just by like pulling their leg a little bit harder at a gradual pace, that person is then holding tension in their leg a little bit more. You know, not just yanking on their leg right away. It's like maybe it's just like a slow, I'm going to start to hold your ankle and I'm going to try to see if you can take more of my weight here. Whereas like you're not just like 100% pulling on someone, you know? Yeah. So it's like more of like a build up, like, hi, like saying like, you know, I guess like kind of relates to like if you're doing like a cartwheel work, instead of just slamming your hands on the ground, you want to like slowly say hello to the ground and slowly leave it. So it's like I think that there's beauty in that partner work as well, where you're like slowly giving pressure and slowly taking it away so that it doesn't throw anyone off balance. And especially when you're at great heights or in dangerous positions. And yeah, that nonverbal communication is so beautiful. And I experience it too, the energy that you're talking about, whether it's in roughhousing or the jiu-jitsu and the pole, it's like there is some type of like there's a you can really hone into someone's nervous system when you are physically in contact with them.
Oh,
I don't think that the world's like we don't have that many opportunities for adults to be in physical contact with each other in ways other than relationships, romantic relationships, or like, dangerous situations. So it's nice to have it brought into physical spaces where it's just play or it's just trying things out or, just recreational. We do with our seniors, we do like some wrist grabbing games, some shoulder tapping games, and they love it. The laughs come out like you're talking about,
Yeah.
the smiles come out, and it's like people want this.
Yes.
Like it's needed in all ages, especially in adults, I feel like now. And there's like just this loneliness that's in the air.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I completely understand and exactly know what you're saying. So if you train jujitsu, or you know someone that trains jujitsu, and you're like, ew, they hug each other and sweat each other. That gay. No, these are men going back to the Stone Age times of samurais and gladiators where they just fought with their hands. So if you really think about it, like most men out there probably cannot kill another human with their bare hands, right? But jujitsu will teach you that, and that's why I find it so empowering that your legs can kill another human. Like I know my legs can, but do I go out and do it only in jujitsu class? I'm never gonna do this. I don't plan myself doing this out on the streets or if someone attacks me and goes to the floor, it's like I'm not gonna like bust out my arm and neck triangle. I'm trying to get away. So yeah, in jujitsu, they've created great, wonderful, beautiful communities. And isn't it strange how like the person that can like break your arm off is now hugging you after class and you guys are having like a pizza after class? And same thing with uh like when the doubles pull workshop that I just had, I've noticed that people were so happy, the smiles on their faces, and it's not because they did these many tricks, but they were empowered, feeling like I didn't realize I could hold another human with my legs. I didn't realize like I could like sit there and hold these positions and be in this. Yeah, it is stressful. It is stressful to be on the pole hanging, and then now you got to support another human. But I think the pole devils workshop, we didn't really see it as stress. We saw it more as play, fun and play. So I absolutely agree. The older we get, there's less opportunities for adults to have this type of play. Somehow as adults we think like, oh, we got to be serious and we have to playtime is for kids. But I think the only way to stay really young is if you stay like a kid at heart. There's this inner child in you that just wants to like play, be playful. So I could see the older we get, especially in New York, even though New York City is such a very populated city, where can you find like friends where you can just have fun and play like in a similar interest, right? So you have to go to the pole studio, you got to go to the basketball game courts, you got to go to the community that you want to be a part of, and that's where you're gonna really find it. But it's never just going to be handed to you. You have to get up and put a little effort into it and give it a try. And there's moments in my life where I'm like, what's the meaning of my life? You know, as a woman, you can be like, oh yeah, it's to give birth and have kids. I'm like, oh, okay, but there's a little bit more to that. And I find the meaning of my life right now is to build friendships or build relationships with people who I find that have something to give back to the society. So it's about, to me, building relationships. And don't think of so much as money, like, okay, if I build a relation with this one, how much are they going to pay me? You can't always equate it to money, but when you get really good at solving somebody else's problem, and even though it doesn't sound like a problem, but boredom is a huge problem. Like, what are you going to do on your Sunday? What are you going to do Saturday night? What are you going to do Friday night? Boredom's a huge problem. And people don't see it as a problem. You may not recognize it, but most Friday night, what people go out and drink and party and eat chicken wings. And what did we do Friday night? We danced on a pole with your new friend. What'd you do Sunday? You hung out on aerial hoop class and you did some cool tricks. So I find like, yeah, in some ways boredom is a problem, but as long as you replace that boredom with a fun activity, challenge, or skill that you could see yourself growing, you're not going to have that problem. Because if you let boredom get into your body too much, into your mind, that's when the vices come out. That's when you run to your cupcakes and you run to your unhealthy eating or your Tinder swipes or your, the unhealthy vices that New York has to offer. Like,
or just the phone in general, because
phone.
New York does have a lot of things to offer, more so than many places, especially for communities. Again, but it's up to you to get yourself like out there. And, another topic I was also hoping that we could discuss was your background in performance. And also, like, I feel like when I've seen you perform, it's not just a performance, but it's like a beautiful story that you're trying to tell. And you're going all into that story. You're embodying that character or that person. And it's just beautiful to see. And so if you could talk a little bit about that creative process.
So to performing, either I'm doing it solo or a duet. Solo, I find what's really interesting in performing is when I'm planning for it. In my head, I have, I'm gonna put this move, that move, the song's gonna be like this, and I kind of over ambitiously want so much in it. But then as the time gets closer to performance date, I realize like don't kill yourself, don't push yourself so hard. I think about who is the audience? Are they intoxicated? Are they watching? Are they kids? Are they a trained eye? And if there's alcohol in the audience, which half of these events have it, whatever you do, they're gonna be amazed. I've noticed, because the drunk eye is like the drunk eye. They're intoxicated. So anything that looks high energy, sexy, you show skin, anything fast spinning, any drops, they're easily entertained. The trained eye is like at the pole studio, all those people who take pole classes know how hard those tricks are. All those students know what it takes to do those complex moves and transitions. So to the trained eye, then it's a little bit different. Right. So that's where I would throw in more interesting transitions or tricks or things where I know the audience is gonna have respect and like be really appreciated.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of divide the audience: trained or untrained. Untrained is like, yeah, just do a split. They're fine with it. And then when it comes to like character and storytelling, I do try to come out with the character, because the moment you step out on stage, people remember your first 5-10 seconds, and they remember your last 5-10 seconds. They remember the beginning and the end. Kind of like I guess like a Disneyland ride. You just remember getting on, and then the roller coaster happened, and you got off, and all you remember is just the beginning and the end. So that's where I find like costume is really helpful. Facial expression is really helpful in how you talk with your hands and your face and your body. So and I could see how some people are like, oh, but it's so nerve-wracking. You're in front of everyone. Everyone's judging you. Well, you have to get to a point, and maybe not for everyone, but you have to get to a point in your life, if you want to be happy, you've got to not care what other people think.
Yeah.
So you get up there and perform, and maybe like, okay, one person claps for you, but you don't care if anybody claps for you, or you don't care if anybody watches you. So once you adopt the attitude of, I don't care what other people think, I'm just going to perform my situation, something in your personality opens up even more. Because I find a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know if that's going to look good, or I don't know if you start caring what other people think. And unless you're getting paid big bucks for it, I don't think you should care that much.
Yeah. There was also like something that was said in this. It was a book. This book that Rick Rubin wrote on creativity, and it was if the artist is happy with the work they're creating and the viewer is enlivened by the work they're experiencing, it doesn't matter if they see it the same way. I feel like um you create and you have this vision behind your creation, but everyone in the audience also sees different pieces of it and they see it in their own way, especially even at this pole studio, because it's like, to me, certain moves are much harder than the person sitting next to me. So I'm going to clap for things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I would just know that's so painful. Like, or just like, it just goes back to like, you don't know how people are going to experience it, but as long as like you're genuine and you're like enlivened, and they'll be enlivened. And it's just like a wonderful experience. Even though it's not the same experience.
And you're just communicating your feelings. Sometimes you don't have the words. I feel like a lot of time I don't have the words, but you have the body language. You have the movements on your in your body to express how you're feeling or what you're trying to say. And I find like dance is probably the most universal language that humans are able to be in touch with. Like anyone could, to me, anyone can dance. So as long as you get up and you practice and you do your moves, you're practicing body language. You're practicing another language that someone on the other side of the world can see and appreciate and understand that language, that body movement, that the dance that you're doing. That's what I find so beautiful about what we do in this movement is it's communication, right? And I find back to meaning of life is to communicate through your body and to have these when you're making a connection as a performer to the audience. If I can make a connection and either make someone clap, cheer, cry, have an emotional reaction, I feel very accomplished as an artist. Even if I can get them to like stop looking at their phone and look at me while the performance is happening, I feel so very accomplished. Because I've been in scenarios where people are just on their phone swiping, doing whatever. The show's happening, they're still on their phone. Okay, whatever. But if I can get their attention away, I feel accomplished. So it's, to me as an artist, it's getting like them to react. It may not be the ideal reaction, but at least I got them to react.
Right.
To like turn their head, to go, to be like, whoa, or to clap, or to cry, or cheer.
Yeah.
Just some sort of reaction. So.
Yeah, that must be like also hard to look in the audience and notice that people are on their phones, because again, it's like our attention span is so short that a lot of people are looking into their phones very quickly, very like without them even noticing. And like I'll be coaching basketball and the kids have an Apple Watch and they'll check their Apple Watch. I'm like, what are you doing? We have an hour of practice. Like, so it's something that you've worked so hard for, and then you look out and see people on their phones. It's like, oh, that can be a little distracting. But also, I think what was really cool was you spoke about facial expressions, and I think that there's a lot of one need for like just facial expressions in dance in general. Something that I think is kind of fading a little bit. Like when you see videos of these kids in Africa and they're doing these crazy dances, and then you see their faces and their look, it's just amazing the amount of expression that they allow to come out of their face. And it's like, I feel like we hold a lot back in our face. But I also find it interesting to talk about facial expressions within pole, because sometimes you're holding back because you're like, oh, this is not fun. And you're like smiling or, have you found that, like, what have you found with working with facial expressions in painful situations, or, just the like,
in painful situations that perform that.
Okay.
It's like cringing, it's red, you're gonna cry, you're screaming. Save that for the practice time. I find like when it comes to performing, all the moves you're doing should just come so naturally out of your body. It should not be like the hardest trick. It should not be like movements that are too strenuous on your body. You should be able to perform your routine 3-4 times in a row and not gas out. Otherwise, your routine is too hard for yourself. All the hard training should happen during class, during training, not during performing. You don't show your newest, you don't show that new move you learned yesterday in your performance. So when the moves come out so organically and naturally out of your body, then the facial expression just should come out naturally. I don't find like new moves. Yeah, I can see the students and myself. My face cringes. I'm biting my lip. I'm like have one eye open. How like it's just a not the greatest looking expression, but that's because it's a new move. It's something you're working on. So yeah, the coordination of the facial muscles with the movement is to me a skill. It's this where I see it the most come out is like you'll see it in like Broadway showgirls. They got those big smiles. They're kicking their legs up, or even Cirque du Soleil. They really exaggerate their makeups. Like their eyebrows are higher, the smiles look bigger. So they use makeup to exaggerate the facial expressions, but they still are able to maintain like maybe the face that they want, and that's probably because they're professionals. But they've done so much training on their moves that the face just comes out naturally. They probably, I think facial expression when you're practicing it probably comes out the last 1 or 2 weeks when you practice, because you've got your routine, your moves down, your music down, your costume. Last thing, just practice what you're going to do with your face. So you want to smile, wink. I find the facial expression, I'm trying to make eye contact with some people out there as I perform. Especially when I come off the apparatus and you're making eye contact to an audience, just choose someone and you have you send you can send your energy through your face to the audience. It happens like I visualize like my face having these like laser beams and I'm projecting like energy out there. Yeah, and you see it in gymnastics too. After they've completed their amazing routine, their chin is up, they have a big smile, and they walk off like they're like the most amazing human on earth. So I find facial expression is good. You practice smiling, it brings out the happiness in you. So facial expression. You know, the other thing I find really interesting, and I only see it in more in pole dancing than any apparatus, is hair whipping. I haven't gone into it yet, but there's a few teachers out there that are really good at it. Hair whipping. Hair whipping is another whole language I find very interesting, because it's just from the neck on up and the way the hair whips and moves around. That's a whole nother skill, set of expressions, set of ways to like move yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a whole nother, mostly only pole dancing. I haven't seen it too many to any other areas too much, but the hair whips, yes.
Yeah, it definitely gives a different element of surprise too. I think it was also really cool that you noted that it's important to you should kind of be cognizant if your face is cringing, if your face is like one eye winking, that like maybe that's not the move for you to do at the moment. Maybe your body doesn't completely trust that move and it's coming out in your face. Like a lot of the times when you're doing an uncomfortable move, people are like, pay attention to your breath. But if you also pay attention to the face, you're like, oh, something is sensing danger here, or something is not comfortable here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see that in your students too. When you're teaching class, you're like, oh no, oh no, let me go to that person right now.
You see the confused look of what am I supposed to do here? How do I get to the next thing? You clearly see in the face. Sometimes if I don't catch it right away, I just be like, if you're not sure, just yell, scream, say something right away and I'll come over. But most of the time I can kind of read it. I think also back to jiu-jitsu, when you're training jiu-jitsu, you're constantly trying to predict the other person's movement and you're trying to beat them 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. So when you translate that as a teacher and you're looking at your hoop student, your pole student, you're trying to help them to predict. So
Mhm.
you can kind of predict where their moves are going and how they're positioning themselves. And if something is slightly off, I always try to quickly go up to them and give them a quick tip. Um, but I find like being able to predict someone's movement is super helpful as a teacher.
Mm.
So especially if they're like trying to set up for a certain move, and then the setup is slightly off,
Mhm.
and if you don't get over it and help them set up their arm or their elbow or their hip position, they're not going to do the move. So
Mhm.
as a coach, as a teacher, you want to jump in there and make the best experience for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it's very very interesting.
Awesome. So I just have like two more quick questions for you. One would be, what are some books or movers that kind of you're interested in at the moment that are continuing your growth, or where are you, interested in exploring next?
That's a great question. Something you do I really admire is like you hang off a pole and dribble a basketball. Like two things that don't sound like they go together, but you made it go together. I think I would try like something similar where you're on an apparatus, but you're holding or managing an object. So let's just say you're inside the aerial hoop, but then you're hula hooping on your arm.
Yes.
Or you're on the pole, but you're like twirling a ribbon.
Yes.
Or it's somehow combining. To me, that's like taking it like another level up, is to add in an object, somehow manage, move that object so artistically, but then yet be able to move inside your apparatus, whether it's a hoop or a pole.
Right.
That's like singing and dancing at the same time. It's hard to be good at both, but very, very few people can pull it off.
I think that's like really cool because, well, one of the other things I've done is like taken a remi sit, which in pole, if you do pole, a lot of people don't find that a comfortable position. Yeah. And I've spun around and then thrown a tennis ball against the wall. So I'm like, this is trying to train just like something else, like where I'm not just thinking about it being the most like just uncomfortable. But yeah, so like using tennis balls and just tossing them in the air when you're doing things is just like a way to train the vision or the brain in another way. But I also find like I've done dribbling a basketball while doing like animal flow, like kind of crawling movements. Which one, it gets me very mobile at the same time of warming up my handle or being able to have a lot of ball control. So it's like killing two birds with one stone, but it's also like you kind of, by making the situation even harder, when you go back to just the one, maybe it's not as difficult, or maybe you're able to, be like, oh, this fear I have in this situation shouldn't be as bad. I was able to do it and dribble. So you can go back to something and maybe do it with a little more focus or a little more grace.
It's like making something harder than you really should.
Yes.
And then so you make it extra hard for yourself.
Yeah.
And then you subtract the one thing that made it hard for yourself, and you're like, oh, okay, it's back to the easier mode. Wow, it got easier. So it's kind of an interesting way to train like that. And I do find myself training like that before performances. Months before, I'll purposely make the situation harder and harder and train the hard moves. And then performance showtime comes, then just subtract it, make it easier. Just make it clean and easy so you don't strain yourself while you're performing. But I find that something that you can't really ask a person to be like, okay, I have a class called hula hooping and pole dancing simultaneously. I don't see that being too successful because it's not like people want that, and it's two different skills that it's too challenging to combine. But if you're an athlete and you already excel at one of them, then sure, add in the second one where you're okay at, and just push yourself through it. Like, what's the worst that could really happen is is you don't dribble that well, or you don't spin your hoop that well, or you don't twirl your ribbon that well, or you're trying to juggle tennis balls and it's hard to catch the balls. But I find like something, yeah, like you're saying, something it works the brain in such a different way. Like that extra coordination I find is
yeah.
good for training. So
Yeah, it also allows like I think it allows areas to like mess up in different ways too. So like, you know, and if you do mess up, like how do you keep going? How do you continue that? So it is fun to do. But one more question. Uh if you were to send a message, just one big message to the world, right now, like it could be about movement, it could be about relationships. Like, what would be your message that you find very important at this moment?
To the people out there, so many messages. I would say no one is going to come and help you with your dreams. That's why they stay at dreams, because you never turn them into goals. And you can dream all you want, but goals are another set of mindset. Goals mean you have a to-do list, you have an agenda, you have a timeline. So if you have dreams, they're going to stay like dreams. If you want to turn them into goals, write your to-do list, make your timeline, find out the people you got to be around, and you get up and you execute that to-do task, those goals, those little milestone goals. Otherwise, no one's really going to come over and help you. That's my kind of attitude towards life. Even if you cry and whine, it's still like no one's going to be in your shoes and see your vision and see your where you want to go with yourself. So I find is know the difference of dreams and goals and plan your goals out and be around people that are going to support your goals, because it's good to have a community. And if you don't have access to a community, it's okay. As long as you stay very focused on your goals, your time will come, your reward will come. But it's a matter of mindset, is how you talk to yourself. I find is the most important conversation is the one with yourself. How do you talk to yourself when you're in a bad situation? How do you talk to yourself when you're depressed? How do you talk to yourself when someone gave you an ugly compliment? So it's you have to sit with yourself for the rest of your life, and you have to battle your own demons. You have to figure out what works for you. And I would say that's my advice. Turn your dreams into goals and learn to talk kindly to yourself and learn to give yourself credit. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like giving yourself credit isn't always the easiest part too at the end of the goals, you know?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so happy that our paths have crossed.
Me too.
And like it's just been really fun to learn from you and have this conversation and visit your space as well. If you have a moment to come down to Carolyn's space in Gowanus, can you give us the address?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we're on the border of Gowanus or Carroll Gardens. Technically, it's Carroll Gardens.
Oh.
And the web address is Tiger Mom Brooklyn Aerial Hoop Studio. Oh my God, I know that was a lot, right? One more time. Just type in Tiger Mom Brooklyn, BROOKLYN, aerialhoopstudio.com. And you can go to the YouTube channel. It's Tiger Mom Aerial Hoop. Or I think it's just Tiger Mom. Shoot, I gotta double check. But just go to YouTube and you just type in Tiger Mom Aerial Hoop, and then you'll probably see my YouTube channel pop up. The pole doubles performance is on that YouTube channel as well, so you can check it out there. And yeah, I teach aerial hoop, and I love teaching to beginners. So come check it out.
And you also, your Instagram.
Oh, yes. The Instagram is, I have two of them. My personal one is Carolyn_Tiger Mom. And then my aerial hoop one is Tiger Mom Aerial Hoop Studio. Yeah. Oh, and then sorry, just quickly, how'd you get that name Tiger Mom? Everybody asks me. Um, I had this idea of like I wanted to be the Tiger Mom for your pole dancing and for your aerial hoop, right? I want to be that coach who gives you that gentle push, who wants to bring the best out of you, who's going to give you tough love.
I like that.
That is my vision as your aerial hoop or pole dance teacher. So a
Ooh.
little gentle push and tough love, and I want to bring the best out of you. So
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that message. Also, fun fact, Carolyn and I have the same birthday.
oh, January 10th.
January 10th. Yeah. So it's just been so nice, like I said, to learn from you and just be in the same space as you and have these types of conversations. Because, yeah, like you said, I can tell that you value relationships and people and community. So, come check her out or check out Instagrams or whatever. Hopefully, this podcast resonates with you, motivates you, or inspires you to move your body in different ways, or with different intention. And yeah, feel free to message us on any questions you have or any insight. Really looking forward to this release. And thank you again for the time.
Yep. Awesome.
All right. Bye, friends.
Bye, friends. Have a great day.
Thanks.